Hey, everybody. Welcome back to Modern Day Musician. I'm here with trumpet player, all around awesome guy, Ron Harter. And today we're going to talk about music, and we're going to talk about making your way as a musician in the modern day. We'll find out a little bit about him, and I'm sure it's going to go in a bunch of different directions. So I hope you enjoy it. Hey, Ron, how you doing?
Yeah. Hey, how you doing, John?
It's good to see you, man.
Yeah, likewise.
Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, all
Yeah,
those
you have
nice
a nice
things.
holiday?
Very much, very much.
Good.
It was fun. You?
Good. It's just always busy. It's trumpet player's busy
Oh yeah,
time.
of course, of course.
It's
50 million
seven,
gigs, right?
yeah, seven services,
You're,
then
you're,
run
you're
out to see the family and sleep on the couch while they're trying to hang out.
and your chops are like, hey man, could you give me a break for a little bit?
Little half hour and hit
Yeah.
it again.
So Ron, why don't you, for people tuning in, can you give like a brief sort of background? We'll talk about how we met, but to give a little brief background about your sort of your musical past and whatever you want to include in there.
Ooh. So quick biography would just be music's been in the family. Not necessarily trained musicians or anything of that nature, but my grandmother was nasty on piano. She grew up on an orphanage and she just did everything by ear. So I grew up with her telling me to, I'm 3 or 4, push the pedals on the electric organ. So the bass got in my brain. And kind of ever since then, I was going along, and band was cool. It was okay, but it was kind of a drag, to be honest, in some ways. So my band director, Dr. Camito, fantastic dude, he put all the first chairs into this small chamber. And this was like junior, senior year. Did that, and it blew my mind. I was like, whoa, this is what it could be like. So right from there, 16, 17, I decided I'm going to be a professional musician, whatever that means. So I just started auditioning and freaked out at a couple of them and nailed a couple of them and got to go to SUNY Purchase. Uh, Kind of got beat up through those 4 years, stuck through it, and then just been gigging, freelancing, running bands ever since.
Oh
And
man.
then I meet you at ACT a couple years ago. So
Yeah, we ended up playing together in a run of Kinky Boots,
yep.
and it was really fun, and I love playing at ACT. And it's also happens to be right near my house, so that makes life
Dude, what is with
so
Rich?
easy.
What is with Richfield? You have so many, like all the dopest musicians just chilling up there. I had no
It's
idea.
it's it's cool. There's a lot of sort of hidden players just in and around. It's
Yeah, it's
it's
crazy.
fun.
All
Um,
top notch, like touring guys like yourself. Just it's crazy.
yeah,
I was
it's
blown away.
yeah, it's awesome. It's not what you think of when you think of like a regional theater that I'm sure you've played a bunch of gigs and you're like, oh,
Yeah,
this
yeah.
is like this is Broadway level
I,
talent and stuff. It's awesome. Love
Brian
love doing it.
Perry, like
Yeah.
keeps the bar high. So
Shout out Brian.
yeah, big
Um,
time.
yeah.
Man with the ears.
Yeah. The golden ears, right?
100%. I love it. I love
Yeah.
it.
Me too. Me too. So okay, that's cool. So let's so most of what this is gonna obviously we'll dovetail around a little bit, but
Sure.
a lot of this is gonna be a little bit more about this is not the fluff of you see, like a lot of times you see everyone's highlight reels, and which is great. I mean, you have to do that, right? I mean, we're in the age of self promotion and all these
Yes,
things,
of
but
course.
a lot of times, especially young musicians coming out of school, like you were talking about, it's like you really don't know. First of all, things have changed so fast, but you also really don't know what it
What's
actually
on the other
means.
side? Yeah.
What's on the other side of it? Exactly. So, you were saying we were talking offline. I'd love to maybe we start here. Is that
Okay.
you feel like school didn't really give you any preparation for the maybe the financial realities or like what sort of what
hmm
you were saying. So like
hmm
give me a little spiel on that, and then we can talk about that.
Well, I'm not here to bash on it, but
No, 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 no.
I think they prepare you well for, definitely the experience of pressure on gigs. Like at least when I was at SUNY, the conservatory was like super pressure. So in a certain way, when I started freelancing, it felt like way less pressure, a certain
Hmm.
kind of way, which was kind of really refreshing and nice. And I think, college people should think about that, and try to gig as early as you can. But yeah, there was very little discussion of like, how are you going to do this? If you have a working class background, and you don't feel set up with things. You could feel really vulnerable. So I was always trying to be hip to how much money do I need? How much do I need to save? What do I need to do? Work this kind of a job to get money up before I go do this thing. So always trying to really think about the financial piece of it, which didn't get touched upon much. So,
Which is also very. I was the same
at
way.
least in my experience, did you
And
have
that's
that at your college? Where did you
no.
go to
Well,
college?
I went to Western Connecticut State
Oh,
University.
WestCon. Yeah,
So
yeah.
WestCon,
I
yeah.
knew
So
I knew a handful of guys from there. Yep.
yeah, it was great. It was a great school, and our the head of the department, Doctor at the time, Dr. Goebel, did do a thing with us, and he had us sit down at a seminar. He brought this guy in talking about investments and how,
Whoa.
I was like, I mean, I don't think anybody, maybe other than me, were like, okay,
Like this
you know,
might matter.
this might matter. And I remember this guy, John Russell, it was his name. And he was also a musician. He owned a recording studio called, I think it was Present Studios in Westport. It was like, it did all sorts of big things, but he'd been in the financial field also for many years. And he basically, he said one line that stuck with me, which was, you know, those guys who are like 65 or 70 and they have to play a wedding that they hate and they don't want to go to. And he goes, you don't want to be that guy. You want to have enough money that by the time you get there, you get to choose whatever it is that you want to play or not.
That's great.
And,
That's beautiful.
and that I was like, I know those guys and I would prefer if that didn't happen, you know, all things considered.
Like Jens or something. You know, Jens is an excellent example of that.
Oh yeah. Jens is a super smart guy. Jens Wanderlow.
Yeah, just
And-
big shout out to him. He blew my mind getting to work with him.
Oh yeah, he's amazing, and he's also, you know, he's done a bunch of things, but he's quite good on the sort of on the financial front and all these things to like make a living and have a
being
life with family.
creative too, like you said, because you touched on something big, which is, you know, if you love doing commercial work, God bless you. But if it sucks your soul out, you got to be careful balancing these things. And how do you do creative work or for financial gain, or even just have the financial stability to do stuff that just fills you up, fills your soul up, you know?
Yeah, it's. I was talking about this with my friend Will, who was I just put out an episode with him.
Oh yeah, I think I saw a little clip.
He's basically like, he said, you know, I got into this for my heart, and it's different doing this as a career as a musician. It's different than I would think being an accountant. Not that there aren't some people who love working with numbers, but I don't know. And again, I'll probably get blasted in the comments, but like it's like there is something about music or art in general.
John's canceled on the first episode,
already.
The third episode. Yeah, that's how
Already.
you get big, baby. That's how you get big.
Accountants of America, they unite and they take down my page. But I'm just using that as a placeholder. But like I feel like if you're in the arts, it's this other calling that's. You have to figure out how to make a living with it if you want to continue to do it.
There's an idealism, right? It's like there's an idea of it versus the reality of it.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
So
you
okay,
can use those two.
So what do you? So okay. So let's. There's a couple threads there. So let's take one of them. Your original one, which is I started figuring out how I could live my life. You know, pay rent, all the stuff you need to be able to do, and how much do I need to save? Like, do you have a particular methodology when it comes to saving money or figuring out what gigs you take, what gigs you don't, things like that?
Right. Well, like if we're starting from the lens of like the younger musician, I would really just go with be realistic, you know, have whatever that means to you, have that 5,000 that you save up before you go make a move. So if some shit hits the fan, you can weather that blow. You don't want to be so cash strapped that if one thing goes wrong when you're living in your apartment in the city or whatever, you got to beeline it back to wherever you're from, you know? So,
yeah. So have some savings, first of all, right? For thing number one.
Yeah. And then also, one other thing I would say that I thought from an early time was try to think 1 year goal, 5 year goal, 10-year goal kind of thing. Doesn't have to be 100% specific, but if you just have something where you're thinking, man, in 10 years, you can dream so big in 10 years. So like whatever your ideal world would be, try to picture that, go 5, go 1. So then you can kind of, and that evolves every couple of years, you know, you got to keep retouching on that. So
What's one? What was one for you?
What's a 1 year goal?
Yeah, what was a one when you got out of school?
Like figure out a way to pay for my apartment.
Pay for it. Okay.
Like I was doing marching band gigs. Like I didn't even do marching band in high school, and then I was just doing every parade on earth.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Tappan Zee Bridgman in Westchester. They'll probably be here for 50 more years, hopefully. And it gives a lot of guys opportunity to work every weekend, multiple times. And just like, and you know this probably too. Speak on this, which is have that extra 5,000 saved up or whatever, because especially early on, it's tough to get your money sometimes. Sometimes sometimes stuff might take 1 month, 2 months after the gig.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, you want to stand on your principles or whatever, but people not going to want to work with you if you're bugging them too much of this or that. So you got to kind of be prepared to go with the flow a little bit if you want to work your way up, you know. And now, you know, you do a corporate gig, oh, first and 15th, you're getting your checks, direct deposit. So,
Right.
you know,
Right.
you gotta rock it for a little bit, you know.
Well, yeah, and I mean, also, especially when you're first starting, it is very common to be playing with some people who, let's say that they're just not really great about making sure they take care of their musicians,
Mm-hmm.
and so you will get paid last,
Mm-hmm.
you know, a lot of the times, and like you said, you just have to understand that that's probably the way, and there might be a couple times where you don't actually get your money. I've had that happen a couple times, and it sucks, and you just promise to never work with them again and don't recommend them for anything. Because I mean,
Yeah, that's a big thing too. Don't sub
our
your gig out to some jerky guy
yeah,
that's running the
yep,
band. So you're just setting your boy up for failure or
you got
you know, whatever.
you got it. And also, I mean, in that vein is like, you know, this is a very much a business of
Relationships,
trust,
right? Yeah.
relationships, and if your reputation's on the line, if you do send a sub or you send someone to someone that you know is not reputable, you know, that's on you at the end of the day, and that's not, you know, it's not good karma for anybody.
You could talk about subbing probably for an hour. The in
Yeah,
and outs of, yeah, and all the
how
things
you
that have happened.
there's, man, there's a lot of stories there.
Or
Maybe we'll,
being a sub,
yes,
playing the gig, but
yes,
don't do it better or don't do it,
yeah,
you know?
yeah, exactly. You hold yourself down every once in a while, because just like I'm here for my I'm here for my friend.
For my, yeah.
I would love to get this job another time. Well, actually, that's a really good point. Okay, so I think a lot of people who don't live in the Northeast probably don't know about the New York scene that well, or what
Sure.
it actually, not even, maybe the scene, but also like, what is it like to live in and around New York? How does that factor into the decisions that you make? What are the living circumstances that you're probably going to have versus maybe another place that the cost of living is lower? And you could probably speak to that really, really firsthand.
Yes,
So,
sir. I mean, so I grew up in Long Island out east of Suffolk County, and I do have my roots in Queens, New York. So I was fortunate early on after I graduated. I have a family who had a house, so I lived with them.
mhm,
I played fairly cheap rent, but I knew a lot of my buddies that were, you know, shacking up 4 or 5 in a house in South Brooklyn,
mhm.
and making it, you know, making do. I mean, listen, at the end of the day, if you love this thing to death, like you're going to sleep in that nasty apartment maybe for a couple years. And if you want to be, you know, on your P's and Q's, you can get out of that situation, but you got to get your feet wet. So, uh, cost of living is always crazy, but there's a lot of scenarios in New York City to live in. I've seen a lot of different ones. So, um, I've seen guys live in like art law, you
Mhm.
know, and also in closets.
Yeah. Well, you get good at sleeping standing up like a horse.
Yeah. On those long days of gigs, man, I was sitting in
Yeah.
between the pews on the half hour, you know, like,
Just try to get yourself a little bit
yeah.
of snoozing. Um,
Did you live down here for any length of time?
I never lived in the city. I lived in Westchester for a while in
But
Terrytown.
that's even what I was going to say. Like living in Queens is almost like being in the burbs to a lot of people. So can you speak on that? Like just
Sure.
living in Westchester, like you can take the train down, right? Or whatever,
Right.
you know? So,
Right. Exactly. Well, I mean, there was a couple of considerations. So this is maybe a unique scenario to me, but probably not. So my girlfriend soon to be wife at the time, we moved in together, and we were living in Stamford, Connecticut, because she had a job in Midtown Manhattan. She could take the train, so we
Train
needed to
ride
be
from Stanford.
right. So we needed to find a plan. I'm in my car just always, so
Yep.
like for all the different things I do. So it's like, to me, wherever we are, as long as I can get there within an hour or two, is on a daily basis is fine with me. So we decided we were gonna go a little bit closer, and we moved to Terrytown, and which is nice because there's a train right there in town. That way I could get into the city for gigs. Although I usually bring my equipment, and so a lot of times I'm driving if I
Yep.
in any,
Yep.
So I got a lot of stuff. Guitar players, so multiple
All
guitars
your
sometimes,
pedals, multiple
pedals, amps, whatever it is. So
Here.
so rarely you can just go someplace and plug in. And to be honest, I'm usually not satisfied if I do that. I'm usually like, oh, this amp is terrible.
Yeah,
you deal. You deal.
want your
But
right.
I want my stuff. Imagine showing up and you don't have your mouthpiece and you don't have your, like, it's like,
You play someone
this
else's act.
sucks. Yeah. So
I feel like that with Mike sometimes.
yeah, sure. Yeah. With Mike, the whole bit. But, so for me, it was, living, it's very expensive in Westchester, as it is anywhere within that radius,
Yeah.
and so we had a very small place. It was fine. It was clean. It was on a nice street. We luckily, when you combine incomes with someone, it helps so that you're not in a hovel,
Yeah.
So that was helpful, but it was, it's gonna be a walk up. You're gonna have to drag your equipment.
Yep.
When you get back late 2-3 a.m. from a gig, you're gonna have to drag it out. You don't want to leave it on the street, especially in the winter. So you're gonna drag it up the stairs. Take 2 or 3 trips, and it just becomes a part of your normal life. So
Yeah, 100%.
and I loved it. I really enjoyed the living in that area. I thought it was super nice. I really liked I liked everything about it. But then we decided to move back to Connecticut because my wife got a job in White Plains, and we were like, we got married, and it was like, I think we definitely can't afford to buy anything
Right.
anywhere there. So we kind of started backing up.
It's funny because White Plains and Terrytown are right next door.
Yeah. Yeah. So, whoops, sorry, honey. But, yeah, so that's sort of that part of it. And I think having tell me what you think about this. Like, having a calm-ish, if you can, place where you live is helpful for, not that you can necessarily do that, depending on the building that you're in or whatever. But if you can find a place that's like your little oasis, it really makes a difference to me in just your sort of mental clarity, and like you're when you're home, you're on home base. It's like nice, and it's helpful for the mental aspects. Do you find that?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I would say, there's really not, like, I don't know how else you can do it. You gotta have that space where you feel safe. And as, like you said, I would say how many people start out thinking I'm going to do weddings, like this is all I want to do, or something, where it's like everyone who starts always has that creative sort of spark in them, I would imagine. So I don't know how I was creative when I was bored as a kid, plunking on the keys. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not doing anything else. So, like, I need that space to sit and be quiet and to be meditated and be praying and just have the silence. Get bored to just want to create or do whatever, or even pick up my axe, It probably, I don't know if it was like that for you, but it's like, now I can pick my axe up and go at any time if I need to. But there was a long time where that wasn't the case, where like I felt like I had to go through this process and figure these things out. So you got to have that time to reflect and really dig into all these nooks and crannies of yourself and your connection to your instrument, and it's a lifelong process. So
Oh yeah. So okay. So what do you do now? Because we're talking, some of this talk is like we're talking about the sort of the business side, obviously, and like paying rent, all the important life stuff, right? But how do you keep that? Like, what do you do creatively to keep that sort of that, like you're talking about, to your connection with your instrument, or just keeping just the creative flame alive as you have to balance out these other things?
Right. Well, unfortunately, I think, to touch on the business, that is part of it. I think either you have to be a total wild man and not care about nothing. Like, as far as like, I see zero into my future. Like, I'm just going for broke at all times. But if you do, at least at this, I'm 34 now, so I've been doing this for whatever, 15, 18, 20 years or whatever.
Uh-huh.
I've studied the finances. I've worked on thinking about what to invest in, blah, blah, blah. And it, just a little bit, you keep putting a little bit, whatever. So I don't feel like an immense pressure where I do have that freedom where like, well, you know what, maybe I'm not feeling like doing this sort of, because, there's like corporate, there's, I don't know, theater. Is that
Uh-huh.
different? Maybe. And, there's all these different, the brass bands, there's jazz, all these different things that it's like, I'm doing your own thing because you have your own thing, right? So it's like finding the balance for all those things. It's, if you're only worried about making the money, you don't get that, you don't have the opportunity to like keep that flame alive in a way. I found I was getting burnt out.
Yeah.
I did
Yeah.
100 plus playing dates last year, and
Ooh, okay.
I wasn't nearly as creative with,
So
what I'm saying?
what do you do? Okay, so first of all, did you make a big decision to go, okay, listen, I need to back off on a couple things so I have that space? Or did you do what probably I always do and just go, I'm just going to deal with it. The money's good or whatever it is. You get the fear of missing out kind of thing, or what's your.
I've definitely made some decisions. I'm not going to go into it because it's
Yeah,
the
yeah, that's fine.
future. The
Yeah,
future's
yeah,
coming. So,
sure.
but yeah, I'm definitely going to open up some space,
I
time and
see.
space. So
And then
I'm
you're going to fill it with what? How is that? What are your, how do you go?
filling it with reading books, filling it with, playing my horn however I want to,
Mm,
that there's, I'm sure you know that feeling. There's a difference between even practicing what you want or just playing what's coming to mind in the moment and
hmm.
also preparing for stinky boots, right? So it's like just to be able to pick up your horn and do whatever you want. Like every time I have like I'm gigging Wednesday to Sunday, but it's like kind of rest your face the day after, but then you don't get that. Oh, I'm just going to pick up and play. Like this week I had light work. I did Christmas and I have a New Year's gig, but it's like, I'm just hearing some Christmas carol crack my head. I'm just playing
No,
along with
yeah,
that. And then,
yeah.
I'm blowing on this thing, whatever. Like I don't need to like be in the magnifying glass. Like every single note needs to be perfect tomorrow,
Hmm.
kind of mindset. So you need to do everything. You know what I love about advice? It's kind of all garbage because it's good for you right now, but 5 years
Yeah.
from now you're gonna have different advice to give,
Yeah.
and 5 years before you would have had different. So
Yep.
it's like the journey's so lifelong that you have to do everything and try it from every angle.
Yeah. It's funny. It's funny, man. It's funny you say that because I was, in doing this show and even just sort of in the ground stages, I get to find out sort of where what's their mindset when it comes to this, like,
Uh,
how, you know, not only tackling the practical issues, which I tend to be really obsessed with because I find that once I can get those out of the way and I know what my decisions are, then I can allow
be
some space for the
creative, right?
creativity.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I've always had creative projects. My band, Mile Marker Zero, I've been playing with them for, almost 20 years now. We write and record material. We play when we can. We do festival. That's like a big, important part of my life, which
Mm.
brings practically no money because anything we ever make, it goes back into the band for the
You're
next record and stuff like
reinvesting
that.
it all the time. Yeah.
So it's really, I mean, not to say we haven't had some really good gigs. We've had some, but like, it's really more about, okay, oh man, we just made some money. Great. Let's
But
put that back into the band. Now I bet we could get
yeah,
a
so when
studio
we
for the next day,
right, or when we play in Virginia, we can get a good hotel or whatever, like
Yep.
whatever.
Yep. Yeah, exactly. So that part's always been
So is
really,
that a big part for you to keep that flame going? Probably,
yes.
right?
Oh yeah. I am not a good, I am a worse person, I should say, when I am not doing some creative stuff, but it's funny. Like all the work stuff, if you want to be a professional, right, leaches in and
Running
you
your own
can't,
band, you mean? Like doing
well,
the contracts, talking to the
sure, you have all that, or
right.
it's just like, oh, okay, well, like you said, oh, I got to prepare for Kinky Boots. It's like I got to learn this really, really well. So you're spending your focus time that you're not necessarily being I mean, there's some creative decisions you can make, but for the most part, you want to try to realize whatever the writer or the composer has done, and also if there's an MD or whatever, you are now
Following that.
in there.
Yeah.
So it's really more along the lines of just having it together, spending the time, as you know, right? But then you start to take in more work in other way. Oh man, if you do a good job, you get called by someone else, and
Yes.
all these other things start to pile up. And then for me, I mean, maybe you found this too, which is why you're making your aforementioned big moves. But like, it's like I've gone 3 weeks and anything I've practiced has not been for something I'm interested in, or for me, it's like, I have to get this thing right, and that's practicing for the job, for the gig, for the whatever the next thing is, which is of course the efficient way to do it. But then you can be burnt out after that and go, oh man, I'm not feeling right in a song today. And then now adding family life, and I just had my first kid, and it's like, thank you. So it's like it's a big layer of things, and I'm trying to figure out how to
hear that. I'd love to hear that, man. That's crazy.
Well, you check back with me.
once
I get out of the newbornness.
1 year from now, like what?
I'll tell you how I did. You'll see. I still slowly get grayer and grayer.
Yeah. Congratulations.
Oh, thank you, man. But anyway, there's a long diatribe just to be like, as things start to seep in, I find that I will take it. I've been taking everything pretty much, and then now it's like, okay, I need to be able to balance these things at least somewhat. So what is the first thing that you cut? Like, how do you make that decision? What goes into your factoring in when it comes to, all right, I'm cutting down on X, Y, or Z? Like what?
Right. Well, it's funny because it's I think I would say the most important thing, I think, to me with all this is you just have to believe that there's stuff out there. I think a lot of times those decisions or the way people feel is like, well, you'll never be able to. Don't spite yourself by don't cut yourself off from this thing, or it's a good thing, you just roll with it. But it's like, you have to believe that there's other companies doing this, that there's other opportunities to create work or whatever. So you take some pressure off the decision. Like, if you ain't feeling right, it's not that hard to know, like, I gotta stop doing something. It's usually pretty obvious if it's a gig or something that's really dragging you down, because guys will complain, like, and at the end of the day, we play instruments for most of our living, so that's kind of really ridiculous.
Yeah.
I dug holes for a living for a long time as a teenager and stuff. Like, we got it good.
It's
so
way
like,
better. It's way better. Yeah.
Which I think helps my perspective, where it's like, like, it's always all good, but you have to also believe in yourself and believe there's crap out there. So for me, it's just like, I was so fixated on, when I was in my mid 20s, I was so fixated on, I just want to play full time. It's like, to go back to what we were speaking on, it was like, how do you make your money? Well, I was luckily, shout out to Vinny Nobley, shout out to Harry Phillips. They really got me locked in at the school. I still teach at to this day, Whitby School in Greenwich, Connecticut. And I started out with a half-hour lessons, but then I built it up to 7 days of going to people's houses while I was still gigging. But I was in my early 20s, so I had the energy to do everything,
Yeah.
And so I just was running, and that was burning me out. So then I started gigging more and more and more, and I was also co-running a band with Harry and my other buddy Drew, Triad Brass. They still exist today. And we were doing all that, and I was doing the business end of that, and it was like getting frazzled and burnt out. So I was like, I cut out all my teaching, basically, got it down to 90% of that. And I was like gigging full time, doing salsa gigs, doing this festival, blah, blah, blah. And then COVID hit as soon as that. So it's like, all best plans,
Yeah.
And then I came out of that and I shifted into corporate work, and I've been doing a lot more heavy theater. I've been doing theater forever, but getting into some heavier theater work. And that's a whole world we could probably talk about.
Sure.
But I think it's just important to believe there's choices. So it's like, to touch on, I was saying advice is cool, but it always changes. Like, as long as you believe there's something for you to do, you might feel like, I wanted to just do brass band when I was in my early 20s. Now I do like being in the theater, or like playing in the church scared the crap out of me for a long time. And now it's like, one of the more beautiful experiences I get to
Yeah.
have. So I think you got to be just open to like following what makes you feel good, but also like don't be afraid to test out some part of work that there's other stuff out there to get. You got to, especially we're in New York City, man. Go busk, play anything you want, go busk in the park, and you'll make more money than probably on some gigs you'd make, honestly.
Yeah. Probably most gigs you make. But yeah, no, it's a good point. Well, actually, what I'm hearing that definitely resonates with me in a lot of ways. Like I'm doing a lot of things now that I wouldn't have thought if you'd stopped me 5-10 years ago. I'd be like, I'm doing that. Okay. But I like it. And I realize my life is more fulfilled doing all these things. But what I'm hearing you say sort of is this is sort of like know thyself in a way. Like you said, oh, it's obvious if a gig sucks and you're not happy. It's like, that means you have to be self-aware. You have to be and there's a lot of people who are not, I find, there's a lot of people just in life, but maybe it's musicians too, because we tend to maybe rely more on feelings at the moment than necessarily I don't know, maybe I'm wrong, but like, you're kind of, you have this idea and you have this feeling and you go towards the feeling whether or not it's necessarily good for you, and then it's hard to maybe step back and go, what isn't working here? Like maybe you are just really good at being in touch with with sort of how you're feeling about it. Because man, okay, I've done too much and I need to cut off some stuff or whatever. I don't know if that's the same for everybody though. I think there's a lot of people. I think there's a lot of people. I'm thinking of a few people in particular right now who will go unmentioned on this thing, but like who as an outsider, I go, oh yeah, dude, you gotta not this band is toxic. What are you doing? Get out. You're amazing. You could play with anybody. Why are you doing that? And it's just like you're unhappy constantly whenever I talk to you. So like what is that?
But I wonder if it is that belief of just
scarcity.
Yeah, like you think everything, like that's the thing when you wrote down something about AI or whatever. It's like I kind of just feel like we've been replaced already and we're still here. So like, can it get worse for us? You know what I'm saying? Like how much worse can it get? Like at this point, it's just some human beings want to see real human beings making real music. And we're already at the minimum capacity. I think it could only grow from here. So like, okay, cool. The AI can play like that, but they already tried to replace us on Broadway. You know what I mean? This happened, 15 years ago?
Right.
And the actors struck and all these people struck against us. So it can't get any worse. If you're out here surviving, like it's only going to get better. I kind of have that attitude.
First of all, I love that attitude. That's amazing. I think that my scarcity brain goes, it can always get worse.
Right.
But I have definitely learned.
Dude, look at you. You got a podcast. I'm sure somehow COVID affected this. Where now you're like,
oh yeah.
Got all this. We find a way. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. No, I love that. I love that. That's a very positive attitude, and I think if that is your like sort of baked into your worldview, you're gonna find some stuff that you go, oh yeah, okay, I got this. I like doing this. You'll find some things that end up being part of this creative world.
The tuba is the coolest instrument, right, in the scene. Like,
yeah, right.
Someone had to realize, like, yo, I'm gonna like anything can happen. Like tuba, like all the brass instruments, tuba probably had the least gigs for 40, 50 years, and now I know many trombone players, many trumpet players who double on tuba and sousaphone because you can play 50 more gigs. So it's like, it just takes like shout out to Marcus Rojas. Like it just takes a guy who's like, I'm a effing artist at this, and you come to see me. It's not even my instrument. It's not even it's the me part that comes out. So it's like he makes everything into the most interesting thing you've ever seen. Like, and he's just, so it's like guys like that, they make it. You can make a market, especially we're in New York. Like my buddy Harry was crazy enough to get us to go out when we were in our early 20s, and we're headlining festivals and crap because we busked in the city all the time. I said, how did we get money? I said, we're going to busk till we all make $75. Like,
right.
No matter how many hours each of us are going to, and that was like how I was eating top ramen and we just made it work. Like,
Yeah, see, I love that. I mean, that's like a, what do they call that? Like an abundance mindset, where you're just like, yeah, we'll have plenty. We'll figure it out. We'll be
but
We'll
don't get
have,
me wrong, I
yeah.
was more depressed and mentally crazy in my 20s at the same time. So it's not like it's all butterflies and rainbows
Sure,
the whole
sure. No,
time,
yeah. I
you
mean,
know.
well, yeah. I mean, we look. This is the mental health aspect of doing this kind of thing as a living. It's way. I was who did I had a conversation with a couple people who are really awesome guitarists. Actually, the first one that I posted before I decided to start doing this, and we talked about how it's the mental part about doing this. It's like if you're doing this to try to be rich, or you think it's
I always say this too.
glamorous,
Right.
do something else, because you could
Yeah.
literally come out of school. You don't even have to go to school. You could get out of high school, get an entry level sales job, and be making more money than most of us make in every year. But the only reason to do this is to do it because you have to,
Yep.
because you must, and
Yep.
and so it will be long hours. It will be struggling for a long time. But ultimately, if you persevere, you can be fine.
Yeah, and then, that's why I mentioned it before, but you get like we could complain about burnout, but it's still
Yeah.
like, yo, I'm playing my ass. Like, it's just at the end of the day, it's like, oh, how bad is it really? It's such a blessing. It's ridiculous.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, especially compared to like, I always just say, hey man, whatever happens, as long as I don't have to do stock shelves again, like that was
Right, right,
like I did in high school. It's like that I don't want to do that. That
right.
anything, if I'm playing guitar, I am at least I'm batting it. I'm at a B. You know what I mean?
100%. And I
So
think that also I go in and out of that feeling of like, how much do I want to do the artist thing or really work on that side of, because I even get sometimes I want to do that so bad because I did do that for a long time. Was like I will stock shelves again if I have to, just to do the gigs that are really fulfilling. You know what I'm saying? Like, or it's like it's that important that you make sure you take care of that side of yourself too. You know?
man, that is serious gumption, as they say. Like I love that. You're like, I will do the stuff that I really hate. I was bad at that especially when I was
Mm.
younger. I really had an aversion. Things that I didn't enjoy, I just tried to avoid like the plague. Like I never
Uh-huh.
saw like the forest for the trees. I couldn't be like, okay, if I get to the other side,
Right.
then this was all worth it. And to me, it was more like just like I hate this. I can't. I don't want to do this particular thing, whatever it is. And I was very hard headed about it.
Has that
And
changed?
yeah,
Do you think
yeah,
playing the
it
apps
has.
has made you change? Like that's part of it? Because I find it's very,
Hmm.
one interesting factor is the work ethic you need to do this is
Oh,
extreme. But
yes.
it's like if you really love it, and I know super nerds for this stuff, you just go at it like it's easy peasy, but it still takes an insane amount of focus and work ethic. So I feel like as we age over time, it bleeds into every facet of our lives, you know?
Yeah, yeah. I think so. I think the only thing I really ever wanted to really put my nose to the grindstone on was guitar and writing music and playing, and like that was really the thing that sparked me. There was really nothing else that even came close. So like I didn't enjoy other things as much, and so it was just like it's like I don't really care about them until I found it. And then now it's like the way you do anything is the way you do everything, and part of that is
That's
having
a good
is the
moment right there.
family.
That was a
Thank you.
bar, right?
Yeah.
That was a
Oh,
bar
we're
right
we're
there.
clipping it.
That was a bar. That's a 2 second right there. That's perfect.
I'm sure I stole it from some podcast guy. But it's one of those things where now, especially having a family and like having extra responsibilities, it's like, okay, so you're gonna have to. There's gonna
Mhm.
be things that you really don't like and that really grate against you, and you have to do them anyway. You got to try to do it with a smile on your face, and that's
Yep.
that's hard for me.
Yep.
But
Yep.
obviously, you feel you're good at you have a good perspective. You said you dug holes for money. It's like, okay, this is hard. This is
Right.
difficult. This practicing my G major scale, not,
Dude, that
not
honestly, it's funny
yeah.
because I do have my perspective is a little different. I feel like from musicians I do meet. Um,
Yeah.
but I find it, I didn't, I was always jealous, especially in college, like guys like you, like buddy, shout out Tristan Napoli, like this monster. And he's like, these kids are cutting classes to practice in high school. You know what I mean? Like
Mm-hmm,
I,
mm-hmm,
I was kind of, I was really doing BMX racing, sport training, working out for that. I was super into that. I always had
mm-hmm.
music in my blood, but like, I didn't like band class, dude. Like, I really wanted to play the drums. My pops made me play the trumpet, and I liked it. But to be honest, he taught me the C major scale in third grade, and then I was just like better than everyone. Like, I didn't even have to practice because it's like
Mm.
trumpet's so hard, and it's like unless you get, it's like your perspective is like, well, that's doable. So it's like you learn E, F, and G for like 2 years in third and fourth grade. You know what I mean? So I just kind of felt a little bit ahead, and I never came across people who were like really about it. And then when I
Mm.
came to conservatory and SUNY, and I was with all these, I went to classical, but I lived with all the jazz kids, and
Mm-hmm.
I was like, these kids are like, they already have thousands of hours. Like I don't. Like, this is crazy. So I felt like I was chased. I've been chasing ever since.
Wow. So
Like,
did you felt behind? Were you like,
oh my
wow,
god, dude,
I have to make up some
yeah,
ground.
like just yeah. Like I felt like wow, I had no work in, no work in it. So it's like I worked so hard at doing athletic stuff
Mm-hmm.
and this, and I was chasing girls and doing all this stuff, and then it's
Oh,
like,
what? What are you talking
and then
about?
it's just like oh, now this is my whole world, I switched. I totally switched, which was painful in certain ways. Can't do extreme sports and play trumpet. Like, can't knock your teeth out and break your
Yeah, well,
fingers
yeah.
and
No,
shit.
that's
And
good. Yeah, that's a good. That's a good point. Well, it's interesting. Well, that also, I guess, this is a good little dovetail here. Is that the talent you obviously had? You had this natural ability that maybe because of it, you're like, oh, okay. Well, this isn't a. All right. So everyone else is struggling with playing this. I for some reason, I'm okay. Like, all right. So like, I wonder if let's say that you had started playing and you were like, wow, this is insanely difficult. I can't even get out a couple notes, which was me when I took a methods class in college. I was like, I can't. Any
right,
brass instrument was really rough for me. I was like, wow, I got to practice.
it is for everyone, though. You know what I mean? It's no one's like, like
No, it's like, wow, this is amazing. Yeah, I'm so good immediately.
I'm a natural. Like,
But do
like
you
I
find
still
it?
am just playing whole notes for hours. You know?
Yeah, right, right. Does that ever stop? Right.
Never.
Long tones.
Long tone.
That's right. But had that been a little different for you, do you think that you would have maybe started earlier and been like, okay, no, I want to move into this and really focus on, or maybe
I
not?
mean, I mentioned it earlier. It was like I, I was often first chair. I got,
Mm-hmm.
and it didn't even mean much to me because I kind of was in a school where it was kind of like a nerdy thing to do, and like
Mm-hmm.
bullies would want to mess with you, and like I was trying to hide it from everyone just because it's like I'm being forced to do this, and like I like
Mm-hmm.
music, and I go to bed with my earphones in every night listening to. I was obsessed with music, but like that band aspect of it didn't really click in my brain. Um, but it was kind of like a lot of the other kids, like no one was practicing, you know what I mean? So it's like, I was first chair, and it's like, how long do we need to work on 3 songs for the band contest, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't like I was some stupendous whatever. It was just getting that like, yo, learn the C major scale. It really like put me, it's really crazy to say, but like, so, I don't think I was kind of forced into doing it, and then getting to play in a chamber group with all the first chairs. I'm like, whoa, what is this? And I love jazz band. I always loved jazz band and all
Mm-hmm.
that. I would practice for that. But I didn't understand you could go to school for jazz. That's how
Mm-hmm.
behind the 8 ball. That's how little I thought about this. So once I was like, one of my professors was like, dude, just get into school, and if you want to try to change over or something midway through, you could do it. Just go. You're good. Just go for it. So I really just flew by the seat of my pants. Totally. Just my little stupid 16-year-old ego, like, yeah, you'll do it.
I got this. It's fine,
it's
right?
yeah. And then you
I
get
love
there and
that.
everyone's like monstrous,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
I went to Europe to do this, and I chosen Vale, and I'm like, what are you even talking about? Like, I'm just this
Yeah.
kid from some of the working class suburbs, I'm like, what is all this stuff?
The
I don't
different.
know.
Yeah.
I was like, what's a master class? Like,
Yeah, yeah. It's well, I'm from a small town in central Connecticut, and before, it'd be different, I think, if I was going out of school, going into college now
Hmm.
versus when I did, because of course there was forums online and stuff like that, but it wasn't like the proliferation like we've seen the last 10 years, where anybody from anywhere can find anybody doing anything at
Right.
any
No,
time.
there was it wasn't really like that.
So and I didn't have anybody I even knew who was doing anything in the creative arts, period.
Yeah.
I'm not, so
Yeah.
I'm talking, I knew there was one girl who was insanely good at illustration. I knew she was going to do illustration. She was going to go to school for that. Like, that was it. That was it. Nobody else was talking about doing anything. And so it might as well have just been like, I was like, I don't know what I'm going to do. I guess I'm going to go. I guess I'm going to play music.
But
I
dude,
guess I'm,
think about the belief you had that it's going to somehow happen. You got to keep tapping back into that. It's
that's
like,
hard, dude. So, well, I mean, that,
it's
I
like
got to be
that's a
honest with
leap
you.
of faith, dude.
It
Like,
is a leap of
I
faith. It
don't
is a leap
know.
of faith.
I'm just gonna.
But to be honest, that has always given me, not in recent years, but that sort of self belief has always been really hard for me. Like, I want to do well. I want to move. Like you said, it's risky to do that, but I couldn't think of anything else that I wanted to do. So it was by default that I was like, I'm going to go to music school. And then it's like, this is the only thing that I like, so I better do it to the best of my ability. It was never like, I'm going to be fine, I will figure that out. I feel that now, but I really didn't feel that like that for a long time. It was sort of like, I hope it works out.
But that's what I mean.
hope
That's how it has to. You just have to.
But it's a little bit more like, like, I don't know, like that kind of
I think it's
like
always
the
like that,
anxiety.
though. I think it is always like that, though.
There's no
Like,
getting away.
I'm
No
about
getting
to
away.
hop on this thing. Yeah, interview me, whatever. And I'm like, oh, okay, what is this going to be like? I feel the nerves before it starts. Like, oh, this is like a gig. And I think as you do it more, you get used to that feeling too, right? Like, we know how to
Yeah.
process the anxiety of playing.
Well, let's talk about that. Do you have any sort of any rituals or anything that you do? Let's say you have a high pressure gig, or you got a big thing that you're working on and you have to go play. Do you just go do it at this point, or do you have some sort of something that to get yourself in the moment? Do you meditate, anything like that?
Um, well, I think as we've been in the game for a while, like there's certain gigs that come around yearly or roundabout, so you kind of know those things, so they don't have that same effect on you. But if there's definitely something new or quote unquote big, I don't like even thinking like that as little as possible. Like there's no band leader or thing I hate more than when someone's like trying to make it sound like this is the most important thing that ever happened. Where it's like every gig is the same thing to me. Like on a crazy level, it's not. My pops was at the church. I felt it more than when he wasn't
Sure,
at the
sure.
church.
Right,
But at the
right.
same time, it's like, who cares? Like, really? Like, so it's like doing the theater gig. Like, your job is to be doing it every time the same way, kind of thing. Like, yeah, you practice that craft till it's super automatic. And then the biggest thing, so you got to be ready for that, but it really got to be ready for everything else. It's not even the gig that messes you up. It's like, do you know where the venue is? How much time is it going to take to get back and forth?
Oh
Do you
yeah.
know what the driveway entrance looks like, or
Oh
are you going to
yeah.
miss the entrance and panic and be like, I always, okay, if there's any ritual, it's like I leave an hour at least before the gig. And if not, maybe even more, especially is like doing weddings. Like, you go to all these beautiful places all around, like everywhere is gorgeous
Yep.
castles and
Yeah,
weird crap.
yeah, yeah,
So it's
yeah.
like, dude, go a little early, step out of your car. Don't be in your gig clothes. Just like walk around, take in the air, take a breath, like take in the scenery, enjoy the job you're doing. Because what happens, I know a lot of guys, they tour the world or whatever, but it's like, dude, we were going from place to place so fast. I didn't
You
even
don't see
have. I
anything.
have
You
a
don't. You
half a
know.
day to like. So you might as well be playing in the basement every night, getting paid because you don't see anything. So.
Right. Ah, man, that's a good point. And dude, I can't tell you how hard I resonate with. It's like the travel part that gives
Hmm.
me more anxiety than almost any possible gig. It's like where, yeah, like, oh my, yeah, I have a band leader for my function/wedding band's called Those Guys, and my leader always shows up early, and he goes and takes a picture of where we're loading in. He takes a picture of the street. He takes a picture of
Kudos to that man.
the spot, and it's just like, thank you, because you never know. I mean, and you hit some traffic, and it's like, I'm gonna be late, and I have a ton of stuff to set up always, so I got to be there early. So it's like, that will get me to not enjoy something more than whatever the gig is I'm playing.
I don't know how guys do it when they're coming in 5 minutes late, like disheveled. I don't know how you can live that life. Like
I can't do it.
And it seems like trumpet players are usually early anyway. Like I think there's something to it. Like
yeah, yes, and I don't know what it is. I suppose it takes you a while to kind of make sure that everything's working properly.
It's this, man. All the breathing. You got to be like empty.
Well, and you can't be constricted and nervous, right? Because you're not gonna be able to breathe right. And
I mean, we play nervous. Everyone's played nervous a million times, but
sure.
but you got to find that quiet place, which took me ages to develop, man. I don't know how I did it for so long. It still hits me, but I know a lot more tricks of the trade, And like we were just saying, you do things one way, you bring it into everything. It's like just getting ready for Christmas. Me and my girl starting to panic, like we got to get the gifts, but we got to pick up this food. I'm like, let's just write a list. Okay, you got food, we got the presents, okay, and then let's make a plan. Then tomorrow, and we executed it all in 2.5 hours instead of 3 days of fights, So you just kind of learn how.
That's healthy. That's nice.
Right.
Yeah. So you strike me that you try to be as organized as you can, even if it's not gig wise or profession wise. Like you try to be like, all right, there's no need to panic about this. You make a lot of lists and things like that. Is that how you tend to operate that way? Or?
Recently, I've started to. I never even had a practice journal, and now I have the most ridiculous practice journal you've ever seen.
What's in it? What do you put?
Well, it's just I've really gotten to this book.
Okay, nice.
It talks about how from Egyptian to Greek to Roman memorization techniques, and how back then one guy would remember every last name in Rome. Thousands of names, so I'm like, because I'll be like, how do you remember all these tunes? How do you remember? How can you absorb all this information and hold it? And it kind of led me into the power of coloring things and whatever. So my books look. Let me see if I can find a page. Like this is what it looks like.
Wow.
So when
awesome.
when you're kind of bored as a trumpet player, you have to play for 2 minutes, take a little break. I'm like, okay, I shedded Dorian, whatever. Mark it up, draw around it. Okay, now get back on the horn instead of looking at your phone or whatever,
Man, that's so organized.
Burning into your brain the crap you practiced. Because the thing I realized is, especially, it might be a little bit different with guitar, but with trumpet, you feel like you're building a sandcastle at all times. If you don't, when we were playing the last show, well, you weren't on the show, you subbed it, right? You were busy.
Mm-hmm.
You do 30 runs of that, and I'm doing weddings in between or whatever. My face was like iron chops. I could play anything. I ran a show the next week. This outstanding French horn player was like, how's your chops feeling after yesterday? I'm like, whatever.
Fine.
I just really play, and then 2 weeks go by, and then I'm playing this church service, and I'm nearly in the shape I was in, even though I still was playing a couple hours a day, but it's just not the same. So it's like, you got to know what you're practicing. Like, dude, you ran this scale 50 times, you know it, you know what I mean? It just helps for you to own the stuff you've worked on instead of, without writing it down, everything you do kind of disappears back into the ether. You don't realize what you've even been doing,
Man, I love that. Okay. Yeah, I've tried to keep practice journals for years, and it just
I never had one. I only started
works.
a year and a half ago.
So maybe I'll have to. Maybe you inspire me. I think maybe I'll have to do that, and I'll get my colored pencils out, and we'll really get
dude.
get
it just
crazy
makes
on
it. I work with my students. It's like they're like my little test subjects. They get so
You
much
find
more
it works
into
for
it.
them.
Oh yeah, but you can do silly things like. Now we're getting into the weeds here, but just doing a theater book now. Just go through the colors and like the 12 keys and just say C is light blue, B is purple, whatever. Then you can literally, once you make that association for a long enough time, I just mark around the key. I mark in the book. I don't even look at key signatures, dude, at the theater. I'm just marking purple, this, and you see the colors go by. You don't even have to look at key signatures. Like, you just know what key.
Interesting.
So it's like, I don't have to look at that detail because I can go through a whole book. I mark it in color first.
Wow,
So
that's cool,
and that's much
man.
more recent for me. That's much more recent for me. But
And you find that you just use less brain power when you do that, like so you can just
totally,
kind of focus in on the thing.
totally
You're not like looking at especially a bunch of those
crappy. You
theater,
can't read it.
and you're like it's like how do they write? And it's like wait, what is
Yeah.
that? What
So I
key is
just
that?
see
Like, and you
I
have to
just
like
see
really think
purple.
about it.
You know what I
And
mean?
you know purple is this
Blue.
key or whatever.
It's B.
But
I mean, it's B. Yeah.
purple is B. Wow. Is there any? Did you just do it randomly, or was there any sort of
Well, I mean,
way
I think
to?
like when I was listening to music, sometimes I'd feel shades of colors of things or whatever.
Oh, I wonder if you have synesthesia.
Maybe some low grade, but I think it's something dig into it. You know what I mean? Like just, and it could even be any little student I pick. They pick colors for whatever, and it's like to me, it's more about associations. Like, oh, why was I talented? Because my dad played trumpet, so he made me play trumpet. Like, I heard the trumpet. Like, if you don't hear the trumpet,
You won't know
you suck
how
at
to
the
make it
trumpet.
sound.
You know? Yeah. So I don't believe in talent that much. Like, I think it's super underrated. Like,
Okay.
Michael Jordan didn't, got cut from high school basketball. Like, come on. What's talent?
That's
Like,
right. No, that's true.
So,
And then he became a maniac and practiced harder than anybody else. And then of course he becomes the greatest basketball player of all time. It's like
which is I don't look up to any people for like to be a good person or whatever. I don't care about that. Like Michael, like anyone who's that top of the thing, any musician, they're gonna be off kilter, dude.
Of course.
Like,
See, I don't know why people are surprised about this.
Those guys to be like good people, dude. I'm sorry.
I don't know why people are surprised by this.
Be the insane, unique artist. Be that guy for me.
Of course,
please.
dude. I'm so glad to hear you say that because I've thought this forever. Like people are genuinely shocked when someone who's the most crazy talented person. It's like, wow, that person's actually really weird. Have you heard what they do? I'm like, I'm not surprised by anything. I'm not surprised by that at all. Do you understand how hard it is to do a particular thing, and then you're the best of the best? You got to be something.
And then the best of the best,
up,
but you're also willing to travel the world and sleep in crappy hotels till you're 75, and like that takes a passion that.
Yes.
Like we're so passionate, and those guys are even
more
double passionate. Maybe more. Like
it's I totally agree. I love that. Well, we got a few more minutes. I thought maybe we talk about one or two more things, and then you can let everybody know where they can find you if they want to hit you up or listen to your music, or if they want to hire you for various things, for lessons and stuff like that. But let's talk about one part that's been getting more and more important especially in the last few years, which has been having a online presence. How do you feel about how do you manage this? How do you feel about that? Is there something that you do you have a philosophy for that, or is it a little bit more scattershot? What's your thoughts?
I think that's something I'm always like behind in it. Whether I care or not, it ebbs and flows. Because I do think it's extremely important. I think if you want to do real artistic stuff, you going in that vein would probably help. But I do believe on the flip side of it, where I said before we've been replaced, it's like there is something to just having real friendships and real connections with musicians and stuff. Like, I'm not sure how many gigs I've gotten from socials. You know what I mean? I feel like that whole part of the world, there's a lot of faith in that game, right? The phone rings, So I think as much as I think socials matter, and probably if I had 50,000 hours, maybe I'd be way better off to tell you, but I've still found a way to survive, just like more in the real world,
It is about
like me
the
and
people.
you sitting at the restaurant in between gigs, BSing, having fun. That goes a hell of a lot longer away than, I don't know. I feel like there's a lot of people that it looks like they have 1 million followers, but they probably can't fill a room either.
And it's also, man, that's half for me, it's half the fun of what we do. is like we get to play music together, and I love playing music with high caliber musicians. If they happen to also be like nice people that you want to hang out with, it's like
The
that's the
trifecta.
best. It's the
Yeah.
best. Then you get to go BS and eat a sandwich and hang out and talk about random stuff, and then you go back and you play a show. Like I don't know, I love
Yeah,
that.
dude,
That's
you
like,
dropped in
you know,
between gigs last run just to like
yeah,
hang. It's like that's the
yeah,
shit. Like that's the
yeah.
best, you know.
It was fun. It was nice to see everybody too, you know.
Yeah.
And
And how about that aspect of it? It's just how many weird relationships do you have with people you might see 5 times a year or whatever, but
yeah.
you're on some long gig or long day and then you talk about all these, at least for me, I talk about the deepest stuff with musicians at
Oh
all times.
yeah.
You see every race, every religion, every sex,
Yeah.
and I point blank ask the questions people would be afraid to ask. And everyone's always pretty open and cool. And, we get
I
to
just
learn a lot,
I just always, for me, like the most important thing is the music, and
That's why.
whoever you are, none of that has ever sort of entered my mind. It's like, are you a nice person, and do you play the hell out of whatever instrument you're playing? Then you are great in my book. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah, we always bridge the gap. Music's been the universal language forever.
Yes.
Forever.
Yeah, I love that, and hopefully we get many, many more years of continuing to work in this territory.
Yes, sir.
Man,
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
Ron. This has been incredible. I'm so glad you said yes to do this.
Dude, thanks for asking me. Fantastic.
And is okay. One more question, and then we'll get out of here. What's something that you don't hear talked about enough when it comes to being a musician nowadays? Is there any particular topic you can think of that like you don't hear and you would like to hear more about?
We've touched on all of it, I think, here, which is great. I think just the importance of thinking long term, even though this feels like a short term thing at the beginning, really thinking long term. I always want to, how do I do this till I'm 80, you know? And then I don't think that's talked about often. And the importance of being timely, dressing for the role, being clean and stuff. You could have a beard, you have crazy hair, and still get all the gigs. It's fine. But be presentable and then be a nice person, because if you can really connect with people and stuff, like we just said, it goes a lot farther than, I'm doing a gig for the president or something. I think it goes a lot farther. Like, do you even like being around this cat? Because at the end of the day, now it's like, the scene is different, where it is like cliquey in a certain way, and it is very small in a certain way. So it's like we all know probably a lot more people than we realize. Like, we've crossed paths with different names, whatever. So it's a small world. So just come correct as often as you can. Don't find a way to always be a pretty neutral individual when you're going to gigs. Don't bring your crap into the gig.
That's great advice, man. Awesome. Hey, where can people find you? And of course, I'll put all the links in the show notes too. But where should they reach out to you?
The Instagram, Harter Methodology, Harder. It's the most difficult thing to remember. So, I'm nailing it on that front. And find me there and hit me up, and we'll do something. I like to compose. I like to play trumpet. I like to record. We didn't even touch on the recording stuff.
We'll have to do a round two. We'll talk recording.
Yeah. But thanks a lot for having me, man.
Dude,
really,
this was great.
Really great.
Thank you so much.